Greetings and welcome to another round of the Master Phil in Your Corner podcast. This is episode number 91 called Cash Control. Is the government controlling your money? Well, we have a special guest with us again. It's a repeat offender on the podcast. We have Dr. Remo Biagioni, and we're going to discuss what's happening with this cash control, the whole digital currency, blah, 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 blah. There's so many different avenues we can go down. And hopefully we'll be at least able to scratch the surface here. So Remo, tell the audience about yourself a little bit if they haven't heard you before.
Okay, so I'm a general dentist in Bergen County. I have offices in Englewood and Demarest. I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 1985, started work initially in Patterson, and have had my own practice since 1986. So I'm on the front lines of how transactions are executed between provider and consumer. And I will tell you that back in the 80s, a lot more people paid cash for dental care than even by 2000 already. It really had shrunk a lot, and now it's almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Not that really makes much difference to me, but it's just an interesting observation of how things have evolved in our culture, not just in the United States, but I guess internationally too. The story you had told me, which I'm sure you're going to tell the audience now,
Yes.
is I find quite disturbing. So, why don't you recap everything, and then I'll weigh in with my thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Well, also just to add, you are you got your undergraduate degree from Princeton University,
Right.
in Central Jersey. So, the thing is that one of the reasons that I have Remo on here is because of our discussions, regarding money and so forth. And, I respect his opinion, and he's really adroit to what's happening. And, I used to have a business that was, there was a lot of cash involved in it. And then, I noticed it going away, almost, 100%. But the thing that disturbed me was this. I went to see my nephew play basketball, high school basketball. I'm not going to say the school, but, whatever, because it really doesn't matter. But it's up in Passaic County. And I walk in, and they say, "Oh gosh, here it's $4 to go in and $2 for seniors." So I'm like, okay. So I go to pay my $4, and they're like, "Oh no, you have to use this app." I'm like, "Really? I have to use an app to pay for a $4 ticket? You can't take my cash?" I'm like, "No." And now, look, I've gone to the state games and so forth, like for football, and they'll give you a warning, and they'll say, "Hey, listen, here, you can buy your ticket right here, right now." So you just walk up and scan it. Okay, I get it. It's a convenience thing. But I looked at it, and first of all, I don't even know this app from Adam. I've never heard of the app before. Some brand new thing. I mean, I don't know who actually, I do know who decided to use the Board of Education. They decided to use this app. But for a $4 ticket, they charge a service fee of $1.47. So basically, you're looking at a 36% surcharge to use this app. And the other thing is, I couldn't even really get it to work on my phone. And I wasn't the only one. There were a line of people having issues with this app. And so not only are we being inconvenienced, but we're also being charged. And the other thing is, we charge extra. And the other thing is, think about this, is that you have an unknown financial institution or people, who knows where this is coming from or going to. I don't know this app. I don't know who I'm permitting to have access to my financial data, my finances in particular. Like they have access to my bank account or my credit card. I don't know these people. It's not verified. It's not like Venmo or PayPal or Cash App or one of these other apps that are very well known. And then to add the insult to injury, they charge you. Now check this one out. For a senior citizen, they still charge you the $2 plus the $1.47. So it's almost twice as expensive to use the app. And so I brought this to the attention of the principal. I sent an email to him, and he didn't reply at first. So then I sent another one, asking him if he typically ignores emails. And then he replied and said, "I'm going to defer to my athletic director," who the AD, decided to, tell me all different statistics on how many people have a cell phone, how many people use apps, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you on that data because it was on point. But I said, well, why, if you want to do it for convenience, why are you not using Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, something else like that, where people aren't being charged, some people almost twice as much to use the app? And you know what I heard, Remo? Crickets.
Yeah.
He replied, because he had no retort for that. So who's getting a kickback on this? Why are we allowing people that we don't even know have access to our money? And I mean, this is just one aspect. We're going to get into some more of it, but your thoughts on this situation?
Well, the story that you're telling is so disturbing on so many levels. The starting point for sure is the percentage of the service fee relative to the total cost of the event. I mean, 36%. Think about 30%, 36% in various aspects of our lives. If you were to invest in something and you were to get a 36% return over 3 years, that would be an outstanding return. So here we're talking about 36% for a transaction that took seconds.
Yes.
And also, like you said, who now has access to some of the information, and where can they run with that? Can they really take advantage?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that anything under $50 cannot be handled with good old-fashioned greenbacks is preposterous. So I actually had dinner in New York City last night for the first time since the whole COVID thing started. And this is a discussion for another day, but you cannot park anywhere on the west side of so I had to put it in the garage. And at the end of the evening, I go, retrieve my car, and the gentleman brings the car out to me, and I, give him a tip. Okay, so if we get into a cashless society, how am I supposed to, poor people, on the bottom rung of the economic spectrum of life in America, they're going to be really screwed. So you're not going to tip someone with Venmo. It was a $2. I gave him a $2 tip.
Well, yeah. Let's just talk about that, because now Venmo, they're charging you.
How's a hot dog vendor?
Yep.
Or a pretzel vendor? How are they going to make a living? Because that's a pure cash business.
Yeah, the thing is that also with Venmo now, they are taxing you. Even if you let's say, hey, Remo, you need $20 here, I'll give you $20. You're being taxed on that. They're attributing that as part of your income, just any type of Venmo transactions. They're doing the same thing with PayPal, all these electronic payments. And the other thing is that, if you deposit more than $5,000 into your bank, you get charged a fee if you put in more than $5,000 cash. Did you see that?
I wasn't aware. I mean, I always knew about the trigger at 10,000 in terms of an offer, but I didn't know there was a service fee. I mean, I haven't done that, so it's a non-issue. But
yeah,
obviously, obviously you see the motivation for why the government, whether it's state or federal, would be interested in it, but it's going to be hamstringing the public, especially when you're talking about smaller amounts of money. If you want to, do everything by strict transaction, whether it's bank deposit or Venmo or transfer, and we're talking about thousands of dollars. Okay, fine. But a big chunk of the economy is based on these little transactions.
Right.
Getting a cup of coffee, this and that. And here's the other thing too, which I'm the athletic director or the principal of the school you were talking about. A lot of people going to these events are over 70 years old. I have a hard time believing more than 20% of them are accessing these kinds of technologies. And I'm 63, and I'm not a dinosaur. I do a lot of things that are, current technology, but there's some things I don't. I embraced Easy Pass the moment it went into effect in 1997, but I still write checks.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you another thing. This is kind of dovetailing a little bit what you're talking about. So I have two kids in college right now.
Mhm.
One's at the University of Delaware, one's at Susquehanna. And I will tell you that both schools really make it difficult to pay the tuition. In fact, Susquehanna, when you go on their website,
Mhm.
there's so many hoops you got to jump through with passwords and access and this and that. And as I'm trying to go through this, I can't, there's no option given to me that I want to utilize. So finally, it was after 4 o'clock, offices are closed.
Mhm.
The next day I call, and, the young lady's running down, the whole process. And finally I said, can I mail you a check? And she said, yes. She giggled and she said, yes. And then here's the address, and it's fine. But if you don't push and push and push, you can't get that answer.
Well,
Right? I don't want to do any direct wire transfer from my bank,
right.
because it could be easily exploited.
Yep.
And with doing checks, I had an incident where I made a check out for my Visa bill.
Mhm.
And of course, you write the numerical amount, and then you write out in longhand the amount. So I
Right.
understand how a 4 and a 9 can look similar if you're a little sloppy, but when you write out the words,
Right.
that negates that possibility of a mistake. And so I get a notice from my bank that my overdraft protection was kicking in, and I'm like, no, there's no way. I don't have enough money in my account. Well, 9,000 something versus 4,000 something, that's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
And I got to make so many trips to the office, to the bank. I got to get on the phone with Visa. I don't know if Visa, they have a person that does a deposit slip, or was someone at their bank that they deal with that completely messed up. And now I got to worry about getting these fees and interest reversed. And I didn't need the overdraft, so that take the money back. And we're talking about like 3 trips to the bank and 2 trips to 2 long phone calls where I hold forever at the bank.
Mhm.
And I think part of it is a problem is a lot of these institutions probably encourage the incompetency, because it slows down the movement of money. As dealing with dental insurance companies, there was a period of time there through the 90s and the 80s, late 80s, I had no problems with Aetna. And then all of a sudden there was a period of time around 2003 to 2006. I might be off a year or two, but it was like a 3-year period where every third claim I would send in was lost.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was taken care of, but it's basically for the institution, it's buying them 3 more weeks, 4 more weeks.
Oh yeah, of course. So let's go back to that. But you brought up a very, very important point a little bit earlier in the podcast. You brought up the point about these small, small gratuities, small cash transactions. Look, you have a valet, kid parking your car. You have a waitress. Oh, by the way, waitresses are the #1 occupation of single women. So if you are making it difficult for you to give them a cash tip, you're taking money from that. Look at this. And what about the kid at the pull up your car? Instead of giving them a couple bucks, you're not going to Venmo them $3. It's not going to happen. It's not going to.
But the powers that be, they don't really care. And actually, talking about waitresses, I often make it a point, if I pay with a credit card for dinner, I try to leave cash for the tip, because all the workers there can pool their resources that night. They don't have to wait a few days. And I never worked at a restaurant.
I did. So
mine crumble somehow. Some people get screwed, when they're dipping up the tips and all that. But I figured, let me make it easy for them and leave the tip in cash if I have the cash on me. So once again, it gets down to the lowest rung of the food chain of the the economy. They're the ones that they're going to take the big hit.
Yep. they're the ones getting smashed. And look, you know too that you have or just like a restaurant owner, okay, when they constantly have to they have to go and use credit cards all the time. They have credit card fees and so forth and so on. Now I see a lot of them offering a little discount for cash.
Yeah, that's definitely increased. I will tell you something else that I found very distasteful. There's this one place in Englewood that I went to, and they had this kind of wording at the bottom of their bill that there was a COVID fee. And if that was all across the board, I'd accept it. That was something the state instituted of extra cleaning and disinfecting and all that. But it was a sneaky little way for them to recoup, the percentage they give away in their credit card fees. Because I guess if you pay cash, then you didn't get hit with this COVID fee. And then, a week later, I go to a different place, and then I go to another place, and it wasn't universal. So it was a really underhanded, sneaky practice. That this particular restaurant. So I told my kids, we're never going to go there again because they're not dealing properly with their customers. Yeah. But I mean, you can find all kinds of shenanigans. And you know what? The credit card fee is it's a you're paying it for peace of mind. So as a dentist, I probably pay a lower percentage. I know I pay a lower percentage than if I was selling refrigerators or a restaurant. But I have that money in 48 hours. I don't have to chase after them. My secretary doesn't have to waste hours printing out more bills and sending it out every couple of weeks. So to me, the percentage I pay is worth it because I can sleep easy at night. And at the end of the month, I get my statement. I see everything, properly listed,
delineated, and yeah, sure.
So it's a service. It's not just them taking money from you. Obviously, they have to make a profit,
right.
But it's saving me time. Now in the restaurant business, it's a little different because no one walks out without paying. But in doctors' offices, lawyers' offices, accountants, you can't force someone to pay you on the spot.
Right.
And I will tell you, when I first started out, I was amazed at how people really took advantage. I'm talking about people taking, 2 months to pay a $60 or $40 bill. And they were old, they were old timers, and the previous dentist was very soft on that. And they wanted to be billed at the end of the month. It was like this old practice from the 30s or 40s, I guess. So if you came in on September 3rd, they didn't want to see a bill that mailed out till September 30th. Yeah. So they've already got a whole month on you. Right. And then they're going to take a whole month to pay you. So now you're, and that adds up. If you're going to wait 60 days to get paid, multiplied by, so many dozens of people, that can really put you in a hole because you got to pay your expenses.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I as soon as I could, I when I was doing my martial arts school, like in the late 90s, I went all over to monthly billing, where they signed an agreement and every month it hit, and I paid a fee for that. And you know what? I didn't mind it. You know why? Because I wasn't sitting there on the floor thinking, oh, this person owes me tuition. They're 2 weeks late. I have to pay rent. I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my staff. I have to pay myself.
And Bill, I'm sure this is something you learned too. If people owe you money, they're not referring you business.
No.
There's an unusual psychological dynamic that occurs where somehow the tables are turned and you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
So
always.
This woman I had this woman work for me as a dental hygienist. Her husband had been a dentist, and she said her husband always had this saying that a denture that's paid for always fits better. Because I guess he was a very kindly, easygoing guy. So I have a funny feeling people took advantage of him a bit. Yeah. And so if he made a denture or a partial denture for someone, and there's always an adjustment. It's very rare that you give someone a denture and they never need an adjustment because the roof of the mouth is very delicate. And if anything's off a bit, it's like having a big grain of sand stuck in the soft tip. So, they're always
aside, but what I wanted to delve into is, I mean, look, we know that there are certain advantages to having these electronic transfers. I mean, look, I think it's a lot easier, especially when I have, I have videos that I sell online. I have products I sell online. I have stuff on Amazon, a partnership with them, blah, 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 blah. And it's extremely convenient to have these electronic transfers. The thing is, though, if we give up too much control, look what happened in Greece a number of years ago. I forget exactly a year, but where they said, hey, listen, all your savings, we're taking half of it because we're in debt here in the country, so we're taking half of your savings. And they drained half of the money out of everyone's savings account. And this is something that we're set up for right here. And then not even talking about this digital currency, like the stuff that happened with our little friend over there in the Bahamas. But what can be done? What's to stop the government or any other entity right now from draining our accounts?
Well, yeah, it's really very frightening to think about it, because I mean that was really the whole essence of the Marxist countries of Eastern Europe and China and North Korea. I mean,
Yep.
you basically own nothing, and anything that you think you own is really an illusion. Obviously, you can't take it with you, but when you worked hard to build up a business, there's an innate value to that. Not in the present necessarily, but even going forward.
Mm-hmm.
If you have children, you want to leave something to them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, even in terms of if you own just land,
Mm-hmm.
it's what's stopping the government from just trying to declare
in the domain
20% of your property.
Yeah.
So America was always the most free place in the world, but there are rumblings there, and there's individual examples of gross violations of people's liberties and the right to acquisition, their right to property.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have the answer. How you can safeguard yourself.
No. I mean, do we just go buy gold and keep it under, do we just buy gold and silver, precious metals, keep them locked up in a safe, with a couple of Rottweilers and a pit bull guarding it?
Think about gold. All right, so I was a junior in college, I guess, when the inflation under Carter went nuts, and I actually went to England and Ireland that summer, and it was probably the worst exchange for the U.S. dollar versus the pound sterling at that time.
Yeah.
So I think traditionally the British one British pound would get you $1.50 US. That's kind of always been the historical ratio. When I was there that summer, it was like 2.25 to 1.
Right.
And I remember CDs, you were getting 16% on CDs.
Yeah. There was something at 18%. I remember I was getting like 18% on one for a little while. I'm a little bit younger than you, but
gold really hasn't done that great. There's been a few hiccups along the way, but even in the financial crisis of 2008, it wasn't like gold was going through the roof. That traditionally, historically, it's always been the safeguard, but maybe you weren't losing money, but you weren't getting, your percentage of return wasn't all that great either.
Right. That's the thing. It's stable.
These ads all the time for buying gold bullion, and I actually even got this book called The War on Cash, which I just made a little dent in it. I want to go through that more carefully. But getting back to the most fundamental issue is a lot of this action going on. It's impractical, it's burdensome, it's inefficient, and like anything else, at the end of the day, it's the little guy that it's going to take the biggest hit.
Yep.
You're a mergers and acquisition guy. This is a non-issue in your life, and you're going to get your massive bonus at the end of the year, and your base salary is, huge. But if you're a person that works on tips and, or even if you're, say you like to go to flea market, right? What can you imagine what would happen if you can't use cash at these these flea markets, which are pretty popular in New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And even in terms of getting gas, sometimes I see some gas stations don't charge a difference, but sometimes the spread is pretty significant. It's like 9 cents per gallon.
Yeah.
And if you can't use cash at all to get gas or anything that's minor. Oh, here's another thing too.
Mhm.
There are some meters now in towns
Oh,
where you can't use quarters anymore.
don't get me started. Oh my God. Here I was going to park in Ridgewood, and you had to go and use this app. And here I am, and now some young girl came up at the same time as me. We were having a heck of a time doing it. Finally figured it out, but you had to have the Wi-Fi, then you had to have the app, then you had to. Oh man, what a hassle! I mean, I just wanted to put $3 in the meter and be gone.
Right. Yeah, and think about how much time you're wasting. And here's another thing too. So I'm certain Ridgewood. I used to know this back in 2000. The Bergen Record did this whole demographic breakdown of each municipality in Bergen Passaic County,
Right.
and it had age breakdown, racial breakdown, and all that. And back then in 2000, I was cognizant of which towns were the oldest population. I'm sure Ridgewood, has a lot of people that are over 60. I bet you a lot of people still have flip phones. How the heck are they supposed to pay the meter? They want to get something to eat. There's a lot of restaurants in town. And what was wrong with the old system? You just pop a few quarters in. If you want to play around with how many minutes you get per quarter, fine. Things change. I think at Fort Lee now you get 6 minutes a quarter now, something ridiculous. But to have to go on this app it takes about 8 minutes.
I know.
And if you don't have a smartphone, you can't do it. And so what are you supposed to do? Now you got to drive around and park somewhere else and walk 5 blocks where you were right in front of the store you wanted to go to. Yeah. So and some of these municipalities are hiring consultants, and they're getting really bad advice because it's a cumbersome process.
Yes.
It's making life harder, and it at the end result is not good for anyone.
And here, how many of these elected officials or appointed officials or whatever go back on and say, gosh, hiring this consultant for $50,000-$100,000, whatever it was a bad idea. They never do it because they don't want to look stupid, even though they are.
Right. The only time you hear about it is when the opposing party, is trying to make headway at the upcoming election. Deadline. I grew up in Englewood Cliffs, so we have some issues about there is some rezoning in town for low income housing, and the city council, the borough council hired some legal firm to advise them, and they were not qualified to advise on such a matter. And at the end of the day, it's lowering the property values of the people in town. People live in this for a particular reason. There's no high school. It is close to New York City, but the key is the corporations that are on 9W pay the lion's share of the taxes, and so the taxes are extremely low. So now if you're going to bring in Section 8 housing, particularly if you have a home near where that they're going to be built, that lowers everyone's value. Maybe, if you're a mile and a half away, it doesn't bother you. But, and so somebody, the cynic in me tells me someone, got an envelope to look the other way or sign off on it because it wasn't in the best interest of the town.
No. And, let me run with that for a second. But before we move forward, we have to talk about our sponsors. Okay. Sponsor philross.com. Don't forget to go check it out for everything in self-defense, fitness. We have virtual training, seminars, so forth. We have healthisawealth.com. Don't forget to sign up there. We have over 132,000 medical, fitness, health, wellness businesses listed there. All users are free. There's a fee for a professional, but there's also a free slot for pros as well. But with the with the paid subscription, You get to post, unlimited blogs, videos, chats, so forth. And also, we want to make sure we know about the winning mindset for athletes, executives, whatever. You want that winning edge? Go to zwinningmindset.com. Okay, now back to this. I will tell you something. What you want to do is you want to look at who is giving the loans to the construction companies that are building. Is it someone in the town council? Is it a brother-in-law, someone on the town council? These are the things you want to look at, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, in these little towns that have an envelope involved or some type of reason that these guys are getting these measures pushed through, and they're not doing it for the best of town people. But I will tell you this, because I look around Mawa now, they're the past 5 years really, it's really changed, and they're putting up these huge buildings. And look, that there's a push, there's a push to urbanize the suburbs, and the Mount Laurel decision, this low-income housing being pushed out everywhere is, representative of what's going on. So.
Yeah, a good friend of mine from college who grew up in Mawa, his father was on the town council for many years, and he was always fighting because, he loved nature, and he would be horrified at some of these plans, and they were kind of well-designed plans, but at the end of the day, they weren't considering what that was going to happen to waterfowl and, the water tables and the topography of the landscape. Every action has a reaction, and Mawa is the largest town in Bergen County,
geographically.
So obviously room for growth, when we were going back into the early 80s, but at some point it has to stop, or it has to slow down significantly, because you're going to destroy something that can't be regained.
Well, the other thing is too, is that, when you have a lot of mountains and you have narrow roads and 2-lane roads, and you're going to just keep throwing more and more and more traffic on them, you're destroying the quality of life. You're also raising the amount of potential injuries, deaths, so forth,
Right.
from MVAs. And, all this stuff has to be considered, and also the more densely populated you get a place, the more services you need.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, in many cases, we have a crystal ball in front of us. You can see some of these towns that did irreparable damage. And I'm not a tree hugger or anything like that. But you look at a town like Fort Lee, you look at a town like Powell Park, the way houses are built on top of one another, and people literally have 3 feet of property to the left and right of their homes. The quality of life has declined. One of my buddies calls Fort Lee the 6th borough. If you're on a drizzly Friday afternoon, it can take you 45 minutes to get out of town, and only if you kind of know the back roads and everything. If you're not from that area, you can really be trapped trying to get out of town. Powell Park is completely urbanized now, and it's. And then of course you go to Hudson County. Hudson County is a complete disaster. If you're in North Bergen and you have to go to Union City, it can take you 20 minutes to go a mile.
Yeah,
being in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So the damage has been done in some areas, and so I hope places like Mawa or Franklin Lakes or Ringwood, that they take note of this and try to preserve the beauty of their communities.
Well, what they do, they seem to blame it on the powers above them. But the problem, and this is actually for another day, we can definitely discuss this, is it seems like right now we have a top-down rule, which is characteristic of a monarchy, where we should have bottom-up rule, because we don't have leaders, we have representatives. So they're supposed to be representing our interest. And it just doesn't seem like that's happening anymore. Everyone has higher aspirations, and they just kowtow to who's ever above them, and they kind of forget about who put them there. But we have to remind them. That's why the last election, I made it known that I'm not supporting anyone who's an incumbent, and I want to vote everyone else out and just vote new people in. But
Well, nepotism and corruption, it's always been there, but the key is to try to call it out when it's there.
Yeah.
And try to keep people on their toes.
Yep.
Problem is a lot of stuff, you have to really be a news junkie to really know what's going on. It's so easy. Most of the people are just trying to live their lives day by day.
Well, they're counting on that. They're counting on that. Look at just going back to the cash, for wrapping this up, look at how far it's gone, from using cash, writing checks, to everything's an app, everything, and then there's a little fees here, and and again, how easy is it for you to be taxed? Because now, like I said before, Venmo is being taxed. So is PayPal. All these things are being taxed. If you give money to your kid, that's being taxed. That's disgusting. That should look I have no problem with my business transactions. Go ahead. I put that through. I don't have a problem with that. I have my business, I have my business accounts and so forth, and I do it there. No problem. I have no issue with that. I'll pay my proper taxes. But for personal, people giving money to their friends or treating to their kids, or doing something like that's reprehensible. So
well,
any final words for us on
on
cash, Remo?
I think the reason this whole process is able to occur right under our noses is because a lot of people, they're not doing the math in their heads. I think a lot of people, they're not thinking, the fee on that entry to that basketball game being 36%. A lot of people wouldn't have given a second thought.
Right.
But when you really stop and digest it, it's preposterous. That's a huge percentage.
Huge.
But a lot of people can't think that way. It's five. It's 36% of $3 or $5. They're not going to sweat it.
Yep.
But if you allow that to happen there, then it's going to escalate, and then one day you're going to wake up and say, "Oh my God,
yep.
I just got hit with this big fee that is just criminal."
It is. All right, guys. Again, Remo, thank you for being with our crew here. And Master Phil signing off. Strength and honor.
Good night.